You're listening to the Emotional Abuse Recovery Podcast, episode number 45. Fear is a primal emotion that was built inside of us for survival, for humans and as well as many other animals on our planet. Without fear, humanity could potentially not exist. Fear is an emotion that helps us identify threats. It helps us stay away from danger. It quite literally can keep us alive and sustain the human species. Without any fear, we could allow ourselves to be harmed, or worse. Though fear is this innate thing inside of us, it goes beyond this. It is also taught and programmed into us. Like when a child is afraid to go down the slide, but the mother starts to worry and impresses that fear onto the child, even if the fear isn't reasonable. Fear isn't always a bad thing. That in itself is just a programmed belief that a lot of people carry around. Some people think that being afraid means that you're weak, or being afraid means that you lack courage. But I plan to challenge everything we think about fear so that you can help yourself move out of it if you want to, or hold on to it because it helps you feel safe. Today, we're going to explore fear, its roots and its branches, and we're going to uncover the sources of your own personal fears. Releasing fear can be extremely empowering or extremely scary, which is fear of fear itself. It's just about knowing when to hold it and when to let it go. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Emotional Abuse Recovery Podcast, a podcast specifically designed to help you heal after a toxic or narcissistic relationship. This podcast teaches you to use your subconscious mind to go from feeling stuck to set free. In here, you will learn how to use the power of your own mind to free yourself from emotional pain, move forward with confidence, and experience the inner peace you deserve in your healing journey after emotional abuse. I'm your host and subconscious reprogramming coach, Allison Dagny. So let's get started. All right, so if you're listening to this podcast episode, it's highly likely you've been emotionally abused in some way in your life. You're the only one who gets to decide how you define your experiences. And if you have experienced any kind of trauma, whether that's developmental trauma throughout your life or acute trauma from a specific incident that happened to you, or both, I know that fear was present inside of you. After that fear showed up, your brain went into protection mode. It decided that you needed to be feeling safe no matter what. That is the brain's job. And thank goodness for that, right? Because humans and other animals wouldn't exist without having a built-in protection mechanism. At the early stages of our humanity, it was all about survival. Don't die, don't get hurt, don't get eaten by a predator, watch out for danger, seek shelter from natural disasters. Don't get attacked by other tribes or other humans trying to conquer. I mean, whatever it is, it was just to survive, to continue the species into the future. So as you know, humans evolved throughout the ages, but we still have dangers. They don't look exactly the same as they used to 100,000 years ago, but the fear response of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn are still very much present in the same ways that they presented back then. I think it's important to distinguish between a real threat and imagined one. This is where evolution didn't really catch up. When our ancestors were being truly threatened by a lion or a tiger, they either ran, which is the flight response, or fought back. And in some cases, maybe they froze up and played dead to get that lion to think that they killed them and hopefully make an escape once the lion took a nap or walked away. That program of protection is deeply embedded into our minds even hundreds of thousands of years later. But our lives, for most of us anyway, aren't about evading predators in this way. Our lives have other kinds of fears that for most people are not life-threatening. Now, there definitely are things that can and do happen that are life-threatening, so I'm not diminishing that fact. But when we're talking about fear for humanity in today's time, it's mostly a future construct based on the past that we get so afraid of. We fear things like, I'm going to get fired from my job, or people aren't going to like me, or they'll be mad at me. I'll never make it on my own. I'll be controlled again. I can't protect myself. Everything's going to fall apart. This is going to ruin my life. And in most cases, these are non-life threatening fears. And that's what I'm going to be focusing on today. When you experience fear, your body has a physical reaction to that fear. As I mentioned before, they are fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and these are adaptations to help you survive in the presence of fear. And your fears can come from so many different places. They can be generationally hardwired, they can be learned or simply experienced from your traumatic experiences. If you were, let's say, put in a suitcase by your older brother when you were 2 or 3 years old and zipped up inside and went into a panic about that, it's highly likely you won't grow up to enjoy small spaces, crowded rooms, or confinement of any sort. And you could go on to develop a condition like claustrophobia or just general fear of tight spaces. And of course, this would make complete sense because your body had such an adverse reaction to that, even when you were a child, that it stored that fear emotion like right inside your body somewhere so that that would never happen again to you. This was simply to protect you, not only from the tight space, but from experiencing the fear itself. Fear, though I said before, is a primal emotion, is not a natural one. And here's what I mean. The most natural state for you is that of love and peace. Think of a sleeping newborn baby, so peaceful, so calm. That is the state of being we strive for in our human bodies. Now, if a baby is neglected or left to cry without being soothed by its mother or caregiver, fear will start to creep in, of course. The baby will then start to develop adaptations to that fear, as well as a nervous system response, which will likely affect them throughout their lives, like anxiety or crying a lot, attention seeking, neediness, or acting out. Because this is the brain's way of helping to eliminate that fear and helping to get their needs met. So you have to remember, anything that you do, there's a positive intent behind. You are trying to feel better, to feel good, to get something positive from whatever behaviors you're acting out. And for most people, fear isn't a great feeling. So the brain does whatever's necessary to get out of that fear. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Even though the brain is trying to help you, the brain is also just doing whatever it is that you tell it to do. Whatever you say is important, it agrees with you. It wants to be right all the time. So if you tell it something is scary over and over again, it believes you and it will do whatever it takes to avoid that, just to help you feel safe. For example, if you were betrayed by a man, you might file that away as a belief like men can't be trusted. So no matter what you do in your life, you're constantly skeptical of men. To your brain, it doesn't matter if they seem nice or trustworthy on the outside. Men just cannot be trusted. So you will avoid men your whole entire life. You and your subconscious mind concluded that your traumatic experience with a man or men can't be trusted. Insert fear of men. Why? To keep you safe so that it never happens again. It makes perfect sense. However, we all know logically that there are men out there who can be trusted. We might even be able to think of one person in our lives who is a man who, in fact, we did trust, even for a moment. If we can think of one for ourselves, we can think of a friend who innately trusted their father or grandfather or best friend or brother or husband. There are trustworthy men on this planet, but if your brain says no, none of them can be trusted, guess what emotion you will continuously feel every time you interact with a man? That's right, fear. This is just how your brain is wired to protect you. There's no judgment and there's nothing wrong with you. But if you don't want to feel fear, you have to change the wiring inside your mind. Now, some people will be highly resistant to this, and that's okay. Letting go of fear like this can be very scary in itself because fear has been such a great companion to us. Fear has been what we think keeps us safe and alive, and what can and does in extreme danger obviously keep us alive. I remember I had a client early on in our sessions, and we were talking about fear. And I told her, you don't have to let go of your fear. Fear can be a good thing too if you want to keep it. You can keep it. When you decide you want to let go, then I can help you let it go. And you should have seen the relief on her face. She had never considered that she could just keep her fear. To her, fear was a bad thing or something she should let go of or fight against or resist. And that's because we live in a culture where being afraid is seen as incompetent or weak. But I'm here to tell you, as a coach who works with people who have a lot of fears, and rightly so, you do not have to let go of anything you don't want to. But for some people, fear gets in the way of living their lives and it prevents them from thinking clearly or it stops them from enjoying the present moment. And for those people, we uncover the source of resistance to letting it go and reprogram it. Now, I want to address, again, this real versus imagined fears, because yes, there is a difference. But our subconscious mind doesn't understand the difference and cannot tell what is real and what isn't. To the subconscious mind, it's all real. When you think of a past memory or envision something scary happening in the future, the brain just lights up and sees that as reality. It really doesn't know if you make something up in your head if it's real right now or if it isn't. Think about it like this. Have you ever been worried that something bad was going to happen? There's an event coming up and you're stressing about it. A presentation you're concerned that you'll mess up, or a conversation with someone that you're dreading. Maybe a court date like I've had in the past, or worries about your children. The more you run these possible disastrous scenarios in your mind, the more anxiety you create. You can even start to feel your heart rate rise and feel sick to your stomach or get sweaty. This is simply because your brain believes all those stories you're telling it are happening right now. So it sends signals to the rest of your body to say, hey, it's time to run away or fight or clam up or freeze or dissociate. And I remember I used to get a lot of anxiety when I had to fly. This was way before I knew how the brain worked, but when I was getting scared, I realized that distracting myself from the fear by reading on the airplane or listening to music or watching a movie didn't really help me. I was still afraid. I realized that inside my head, I was running through all these possible catastrophes that could happen on my flight. I was creating that anxiety inside my own head. So what did I do? I decided to change the story I was replaying in my mind. I'm not saying this will work for everyone, but it worked for me, and you can use the same practice for anything that you're feeling fear about. Instead of replaying the disastrous scenarios, I created new stories. I envisioned the flight being smooth. I envisioned the pilot coming over the loudspeaker and reminding us we're about to land and what the weather was like at our destination. I visualized the descent and seeing the earth get closer out my window and the tiny houses getting bigger. I felt the landing gear pop beneath me and the gentle bounce of the plane touching down on the earth. Me then unbuckling my seatbelt and grabbing my carry-on and slowly exiting the plane with everyone else. Seeing the people who would greet me, going to my destination, and so on and so on. You get the idea. You can make this as detailed as possible. The point is to make it peaceful and not scary, and you have the power to change that story. So whether it's flying on an airplane or preparing for court, you can actually run these same sort of visualization exercises in your mind. So no matter what you're feeling afraid of, now you know why, and you have some tools to help you manage this better. Overall, rewiring those automatic thoughts is going to be the most effective way to reduce fear in a lasting way. So at the time of this recording, I had recently been court ordered to meet with my abuser and a court-assigned therapist to see if we could find ways to communicate better. He was requesting a parenting coordinator be ordered, and I didn't want that at all. The judge did not order the coordinator, but she did order us to meet with a therapist to see if there were other options that could help us communicate better. I wasn't interested in this either, but I had to do it. I had no interest in seeing him or having a 2-hour meeting with him. And to be real with you, I was scared out of my mind. But I knew this was possible to change because I had changed my emotions before. I sat down with paper and pen and wrote out all of my thoughts about the fear that was coming up. I wanted to go into this meeting feeling powerful and confident. And I knew that if I was feeling fear, I wasn't going to be successful at getting my messages across. So I had 4 weeks to prep for this and practice, just like I coach my clients to. I was determined not to go into that meeting afraid. And you know what happened? I absolutely crushed it. I'm serious. I wasn't afraid at all. I had reprogrammed my mind so consistently that I finally believed it inside my subconscious mind that I was confident and that I was not afraid. I truly believed that I had power, the power that I did not believe that I had before. So, things that I was believing before I reprogrammed were things like, they're going to team up on me, and this lady has more power than me, and she's going to side with him, and I won't be able to defend myself. I can't think clearly under pressure. And just so you know, there were probably about 30 more beliefs aside from these that I had written down. They were deeply programmed, and as you can see, If I went into a meeting with these kinds of beliefs running the show, how do you think I would be showing up? Right? And I definitely didn't want that to happen. I didn't want to walk in there looking and acting and speaking in a very insecure and fearful way. The therapist ended up recommending that we hire a co-parenting coordinator together. But this was something I was adamantly opposed to because I felt my abuser would use a coordinator to try to get his way. I had been highly successful with my own forms of communication with the help of my attorney. And your situation might be different, and that's perfectly okay. I just knew a coordinator was not in my best interest because of my previous successes dealing with my ex. My abuser ended up taking me back to court after this because he thought that if the therapist ordered it, the judge would probably change her mind. But she didn't, and I won. But even though that win was absolutely fantastic, the real win was that I didn't go into that meeting afraid. I stood tall, I was calm, I was confident, I made excellent points, I was quick on my feet. Even though at one time, 4 weeks before that, I didn't believe I was capable of any of it. So, this story has a happy ending, and so can yours. You just have to know where the fear comes from and how you can change that feeling inside of you. It all starts inside your own mind. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, if you need one-on-one support on your recovery journey from emotional abuse, just send me a message or schedule a free consultation from the link in the show notes. Thank you for being here with me today in the Emotional Abuse Recovery Podcast. I hope you found value here with me. If this podcast episode was helpful to you, I'd love for you to hit subscribe and leave me a review. My goal is to help you go from feeling stuck to set free. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, and you can check out whentearsleavescars.com for more resources and information to help you with your own emotional abuse recovery. Until next time, here's to believing in